good to see you again, my cynical flock. Welcome back to Rejected Bible Stories, a weekly series where we take a look at the biblical adventures of characters that for one reason or another you don't get to hear about in church, or anywhere else for that matter. And to be pretty fair, there's a good reason why you haven't stumbled upon the story of the game-changing atheist that was Agnes Ganges Boyaci, mainly due to the fact that she was born a good 1900 years after most other recognizable saints and apostles, but also because you might know her better by her stage name, Mother Teresa. Now, if you've never heard about Mother Teresa's lack of faith in the big guy upstairs, that's no accident. It was very much her intention to keep not only her followers, but the whole world in the dark regarding her true feelings on God, His kid, and her mission on earth. And her lack of faith in the divine would have been kept a secret had it not been for another member of the church who stumbled upon her heathen diary. And it was found the late missionary's dark, depressing, soul-numbing thoughts that read more like the rejected lyrics of a 1980s metal album than anything you'd normally associate with one of the church's most popular figures of the 20th century. When I try to raise my thoughts to heaven, there is such convicting emptiness that those very thoughts return like sharp knives and hurt my very soul. And then there's this golden nugget. What do I labor for if there can be no God? There can be no soul. And if there can be no soul, then Jesus, you also are not true. That's right, what you just heard were not the long-lost lyrics to your second LP Slayer song that you know and love, but the actual thoughts of one of the most influential women in the modern history of the church during the most productive period in her missionary life. But to understand the Dante's Inferno-esque thoughts by Mother Teresa when she wrote those words, we first need to better understand, well, a little bit about the world around her then. And it was not an easy world to live in. You see, even as a young girl in what today is Macedonia, Agnes Boyaci didn't care for much of the outside world of the church, and at the tender age of 18, she made the decision to go from passive Jesus fangirl to full-time bride of Christ by moving to Ireland and joining the Sisters of the Loreto as a missionary, where she changed her name to Teresa, presumably because, well, it sounded dope. In the early 1930s, in a move that could be construed as either a mission from God or a huge prank, Mother Teresa was shipped off to some of the worst slums in India. And it's there where two life-defining experiences happened to the world's favorite nun, with all due respect paid to Sally Field. Number one, Calcutta's poor inspired Mother Teresa to build shelters for the homeless, the blind, the sick, and anyone who needed a helping hand. And two, she lost all faith in the God that created this stricken, disease-filled world to begin with. Where is my faith? Even deep down, there is nothing but emptiness and darkness. If there be a God, please forgive me. And we honestly can't blame Teresa's soul for going AWOL from God's army after being exposed to some of his, less than stellar work in the third world country slums. But it is here that Mother Teresa's darkest moments, where her work with the poorest shines the most. You see, nobody can really blame someone for losing their faith after decades of flying around the world and being exposed to not only the sick, the homeless, and the orphans, but also to the societies that choose to ignore them. If anything, it's surprising that after seeing humanity at its worst, Mother Teresa's only pushback was to call out God in her Satan vs. Slayer journal for not being at His best. For it was at this same time that she was sending God hate mail when she founded a congregation that would spread through 100+ countries with more than 500 missions dedicated to helping the poorest among us. Let us touch the dying, the poor, the lonely, and the unwanted, according to the graces we have received, and let us not be ashamed or slow to do the humble work. Now, you can interpret her actions in many ways. Maybe trolling the big G with a hate journal was a little closer to Mother Teresa's version of angrily texting that ex after a night of drinking than it was to her swearing allegiance to the devil. Or maybe, after spending all of her life helping those in need, she just came to the conclusion that faith in the man above wasn't as important as faith in your fellow man. Personally, I think my fellow man are morons. Then again, next week we'll have more on another favorite rejected Bible story. Until then,